All right, welcome to the channel, everybody. My name is Ryan Atencio, and I'm a government contracting consultant, and I specialize in defense. I'm a defense consultant. So, what this video is about is what do I do? Like, what do I sit down and do every day as a defense consultant? So, it's a lot of things. Okay. Uh, Basically, it's going to be anything from opportunity identification, uh, identifying people's target markets, their target customers, developing business with those targeted customers in the government, right? Just finding out who's spending money on what it is you provide. Okay. And then you're also going to be doing a lot of business development. That's really key. Like that's a huge moneymaker is visibility. People have to know you exist and you need to know how to develop business. Okay. And in addition to that, proposal development. All right. Sometimes proposal submission. I would handle most interface with the government, if it's a contract officer or anything like that. If you're trying to scope people out, give them suggestions to the government from industry during a pre-solicitation or a source of sought, anything you can do to give a company a competitive advantage. So that's kind of a long list of things, but that's more or less what I do. So, why would somebody hire a defense consultant? Okay, so defense, DoD, all right, wars is a huge business. It definitely pays really, really well. Uh, the federal government is the largest customer in the world. All right, and then out of defense, that's the biggest chunk, right? That is just where money is constantly flowing. I think this new budget's like close to $1 trillion, if not a trillion. All right, and that money's going to be spent. It's absolutely going to be spent. So, since it is a lot of money, I mean, it's the most money being spent, on Earth by a government is defense, at least in our country. It's really competitive. It's very competitive. It's very complex. It's not straightforward at all. It's not easy to break into. So you're gonna spend time or money to get up to speed. So technically, you can do it yourself, technically, in theory, but you're going to burn a lot of time getting up, learning the ropes, to win your first contract. Because I want to say it's 14 months on average if you know what you're doing or you have somebody who knows what they're doing on your team. The average is 14 months. So I believe it's something like less than 1% of small businesses in our country go after government contracts or specifically defense contracts. It's not a lot. It's not a lot. All right. Because it's not easy. There's nothing easy about it. And again, since it's so competitive, you start to run into, especially on these larger contracts, like definitely you can get your foot in the door with like low hanging fruit. I mean, anything MRO, maintenance, repair operations, construction-ish. Your best bet if you're just starting out as a small business is to be a subcontractor. Okay, because the Department of Defense, the main players are called the primes, the large defense primes. Okay. And there's a lot of large businesses. But the thing is, when you become large, that I've seen things get really hard. You're not a small business anymore. You can still make an enormous amount of money as a small business. Okay, but once you size out, you don't have a competitive advantage, really. And I mean, some people say they're a victim of their own success because I mean, you literally just grew so large, you're a large business now, and nothing's given to large businesses. It's really competitive. All right, and not to mention when you're a large business, you can't compete on small business set-asides. It's not like just service disabled veteran owned. I mean, it's, 8A, woman-owned small business. It doesn't matter if it's small business, which is a huge chunk of the money spent, you can't bid on them. So I recommend people start subcontracting and developing a relationship with these large primes because that's pretty much your easiest, and it's not easy, but that is your best bet is being a subcontractor to a large prime, right? And those large primes, what you're giving them is access to these small business opportunities. If you have a set aside, then you have that competitive advantage. And then you would say like, hey, something like I like to tell, larger businesses as we aggressively develop business, not only for ourselves, but for our partners. We don't let opportunities go past us. If we can develop an opportunity out of nothing, but we keep our ear open for requirements. And if we can't do it, we pass it off to somebody who can. But, it's not like you say like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Good luck." You capture that opportunity and you give it to somebody who can. This is something like large businesses want to hear. Well, really any business would want to hear that. But as a consultant, I mean, this is what I do. A lot of it is sales. I would say primary thing is one, never miss an opportunity ever. So what you're going to do is set up a custom SAM search. If you don't have a bid matching software or anything like GovWin, you're going to want to set up a custom SAM search. You identify your customer, your client. You're going to identify their NAICS codes, their specialty bread and butter. And then what I do is identify the NAICS codes that kind of touch those. So, if you're trying to widen your scope of what you can provide to the government. You don't want to do all this work to get in front of the government or only offer, a very small selection of things. A lot of people will say to niche down. I just, as a government customer and on the contracting side, on the private side, selling to the government, I've always found it better to have a wide scope. So I would find NAICS codes that touch, the primary NAICS codes of my clients. And then I would find who do you know? Who do you have good relationships? What does it do? What do they do? I'm sure you do work with people and they overlap. Like, for instance, roofing and HVAC, like those things overlap. Okay, so if you're going to do all this work to get in front of the government to capture business, you don't want to be scoped into just roofing because if you're ripping off an HVAC system off of a roof, and this is construction, by the way, and there's only supply services and construction, but this is just an example. All right, if you're in roofing, it would behoove you to know somebody with HVAC who does HVAC, gutters, downspouts, lightning protection, solar removal and disposal. All right, so now you're not just there touching the roof. You have a pretty wide scope to offer, a wide scope of services to offer the government and to a prime. All right. So you don't just say, oh, we only do the roof. We don't do gutters and downspouts, and we don't, we're not ripping the solar off and disposing of it. Well, now that prime general contractor has to go find other contractors who do those little pieces that you can't do, rather than just being turnkey and expanding your scope to NAICS codes that touch what it is you do. You're turnkey now. You can provide them a quote for everything. And whatever you don't do, you subcontract it out, but still you're doing the legwork, running it down, and you're providing that into their quote. Okay, so again, as a consultant, this is what I would do for my client breaking into, the defense market because they're going to pay with time or they're going to pay with money, probably going to pay with both. So it really makes sense to hire somebody who knows the culture, preferably who knows procurement, knows how to sell, and knows business development that can also do proposals somewhat, or at least know what's attractive to a technical evaluation team. You can read between the lines on a requirement and see their problem, and you're like, I know the situation they're in. I'm like, okay, I think I know what they want to hear. Uh, there's so many nuances to this and it touches so many things. I just found that the scope of what I do as a defense consultant is it's pretty big because I just get in where I fit in. And I guess that would be scope creep because you want to definitely identify your responsibilities and scope, but then again, you're getting paid to win. So you get a monthly retainer, but then you would get say 2% of gross contract value. So if it's $1 million contract, you get, 2% of a million, it's not a commission, it'd be like a consulting fee because some of these you can't have a commission. So you get paid to win contracts. That's how you really get paid. So that's why I find myself just kind of getting in there where I fit in, or if I'm reviewing a proposal and I submit the proposal, I don't touch pricing. You don't want to get involved in that because that's not your lane and there's liability there. But then at the same time, when you see enough businesses and on the private, on the government side, you see enough proposals, you know what a good proposal is, because I've worked with some of the largest companies out there on the government side, and I've worked with some pretty darn companies here on the contracting side. So you see a lot of proposals, all right, and some are overwhelmingly better than others, and that's not something you really share with people or other people's proposals. But I've had the privilege of seeing a lot of proposals, really good ones, and then you run across other ones that are just like absolutely borderline artwork, or divinely inspired. I mean, it's just like crazy good. As soon as you think you see a good proposal writer, you'll run into another one who's just like on another level, right? So you know what a good proposal is. So it would not make sense for me to let a bad proposal go, be submitted because I know in the back of my head I'm like that's not going to win. Like right off the bat, that's not going to win, and it's like, you want 28% profit on this, like, because you know what you're worth, the years of experience that you bring to the table. And it's like, okay, buddy, I understand. Like, it's good to know what you're worth and whatnot, but I'm just gonna, I'll just save you the time and tell you, you ain't gonna win. You can know your worth and price accordingly, but you'll see how that works out for you. So, a lot of these mistakes that new companies coming into the market make, I can just nix it right there and just be like, hey, from my professional experience, that is not going to win. I know that would fly on the outside, on the private side, right? Because in my opinion, government contracting is the most difficult. It's the most money, but it's the most difficult. So it makes sense. It's the least straightforward. It's the least accessible. There's just you really have to know the space. And again, the competition and the level of sophistication with your competition, it's going to be so obvious that you're new. There's no way you can hide it. It's going to come out in some area of your business that you're new here. So the goal of a consultant is to, speed that up, bring you straight to, so you're shoulder to shoulder at least on equal footing with your competition. Okay. Because while the defense industry definitely gets some of the best talent in the world, manufacturing, consulting, I mean, the best professional services, technology, like at the same time, at the lower tiers, sometimes it's not the best companies that are winning, it's the people who just know how to uh they know how to do government contracting. They know the game. Um and that's where you'll get some, LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable people coming in and just sniping opportunities that they have no business going after. But, in the technical evaluation on paper, they technically they know how to write a proposal. So they meet all the technical evaluation factors and they win. And then the customer gets really bad services, and that happens a lot. And as a customer, right, I developed all performance work statements, statements of work, statements of objectives. If it was somebody you wanted to perform a service or you wanted a specific thing, all right, it would come to me to actually, I would develop the requirement so that you could target and get who you want. And I never had a sole source ever. My contract officer would never give me a sole source because it couldn't be justified. I mean, it would be a stretch. But yeah, so that's a skill set. That is a skill set. That's something I definitely bring to the table that a lot of people don't know. I will say, networking, knowing people, relationships. That's why a lot of, senior leaders will transition out of the military and become consultants because they still have contacts, touch points, relationships, people from who they like, know, and trust. Uh, they know the climate, they know about being a soldier. There's a lot that, large defense companies, would can benefit from getting a senior leader coming out. But having worked with some of them who are great dudes. I mean, they're good dudes. As a senior leader, say an officer, full bird, maybe even higher. All right. Yeah, relationships do get you pretty far, but where I have excelled is, that senior leader doesn't know anything about the contracting process. That guy's not writing statements of work at all. He does not know how this works, doesn't know the language that needs to be put in there so that you can get who you want. Like there's not, because they're commanding, they're overseeing, whole units. They don't have time to get in the minutia of something like, requirement development so that, hey, we can get who we want. Because I've seen a lot of people, I've seen it very, on both sides in the military and on the private side. You get in front of a commander, you pitch, some technology, some capability, some professional service, and they want to rock and roll. Like, oh man, we love it. This is exactly what we need. We want to move forward. And everyone gets all excited, like, oh yeah, commander, dude, he wants to roll. Let's go. Let's move forward. But nothing ever happens. These deals stagnate and they die. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'd say a primary one is that commander has no contracting authority, right? They have like implied authority, but they don't have express contracting authority. Only a officer can enter into a contract on behalf of the government. They have the warrant, so they have the express contracting authority. A commander can't just give you a contract. It's meaningless. They can want you all day long, but they have no authority at all to enter into a contract on behalf of the government. All right, they have to develop a requirement, push it to the contracting office. When it comes out to bid, some lowest price technically acceptable person who just knows how to write proposal will come, snipe it from you. So unless you know how to close that deal and give the customer the ammo they need, or whoever that commander is, he's not writing it. So hey, who are you handing this off to execute, man? You want to get that person's point of contact because that gets handed off. That basically the person he handed it off to, they don't know how to write performance work statements or anything like that. They don't know anything about contracting. They're just tasked out with like, hey, make this happen. Like we want this guy. Like it's like they summon it. And here you shall provide it. Task it out to a captain or whatnot. And they don't know how to do it either. So I've seen really good technology and capabilities that we blatantly wanted. They were good. Like I mean, these were awesome. I don't want to like put their business out there or anything, but yeah, some of the software things I've seen, they were incredible. And it was like overwhelmingly best value to the government or in the government's best interest to get this. But it never went anywhere because none of the senior leadership knew how to get it. You know what I mean? There's nobody knows that process. Okay. Especially a senior leader. They don't know that process of what needs to be done to get this specific person on contract. All right. So as a consultant, I do a lot. I should probably trim down my scope so I don't do so much, but at the same time, you don't have to touch proposals, but I, you know, I have access to those and I already know if it's going to win or not. So it would absolutely behoove me to pipe up and save everybody the time and the heartache because you're judged by wins and success, right? You want opportunities. Your job is to get opportunities, access to opportunities, all right, and then develop business, all right? And it's not like these businesses can't do it themselves. It's just they don't have time. All right. I've tried to teach companies how to do this, and they're like, no, thank you, but I'd rather just give you money and just have you do it. Like I don't want to learn it because everything you just told me, I will never do. If they even remember anything I said. Uh, and that's pretty consistent. Even people in their business, they're like, I already got enough on my plate, and I'm not gonna, it's foreign to them. The language, the environment, how to win contracts, like why certain language, being able to read between the lines in a requirement, know what language is going to, speak to the, I guess, the contracting officer, then, but also speak to the technical evaluators, the customer. You want to put language in there that shows like, hey, I know what position you're in because I've been there. And yes, I do know your work environment. I know your op tempo. It's not, it's not unique or foreign. It's the same as, you know, when this company was in doing the same thing you were doing. So it's not, you need to know how to articulate that in a proposal, and that is definitely a skill. But probably a little bit off topic, but yeah, opportunity identification, capture, proposals, business development is huge. Finding partners, large primes, large primes want to hear certain things. Like I said, we aggressively develop business and we aggressively develop business not just for us, but for our partners. We don't let opportunities go by us. We always hand them off to uh, kind of we always keep you in mind. We're not listening for requirements or opportunities just for ourselves. If we're partners, then, you know, we're going to learn what you do, your capabilities, and we're going to keep our uh, ear open for those requirements as well. And we're going to capture them, not lose control over those opportunities, and we're going to hand them off to you where they need to go. Even if it's something that we can't do. Business development is huge because if you lack capabilities, it's because you lack relationships. Okay. If you lack capabilities, it's because you lack relationships. Um, a young lady named Eileen Kent off of LinkedIn posted that a while ago. And I was like, that is so true. Gosh, another guy, Joshua Frank, he said a failure to team is a failure to win. And that's very true. You have to team with people. If you look at some of these contracts, they're so large and all-encompassing because contracts are such a pain in the butt to put together, staff and approve. You know, the solicitation, competition, it's so much. You don't want to do all that work just for one little service. It's you don't. Like I see why they lump everything in the kitchen sink into a contract because they're such a pain in the butt to get across the finish line. They take forever and nobody knows how to do it. And it's not like the contract officer is going to sit down and write your performance work statement, in detail. You tell them your end state and you tell them what you want, and they just bust it out and do a nice, perfect performance work statement. It's going to go exactly to who you want. That does not happen at all. It'd be nice if it did, but it's a lot. So there's a reason, the DoD lumps a lot of requirements into one large solicitation. All right. So it's unlikely you're going to be able to do any of that on your own. It takes teams. It's teams, all kinds of different companies coming together who, one, have those capabilities, but also preferably have past performance as well. So you can have a really strong proposal. So you have to team. So business development is just so crucial. It really is. People have to know you exist, and you kind of have to extend the olive branch and reach out and be of value to people. You know, you need to, not saying I'm that likable, but people need to like you, know you're serious. It needs to be extremely obvious you know what you're talking about because it's extremely obvious if you do not know what you're talking about, in contracting. Like if you know what you're talking about, or if you don't know, there's no way to hide it because it's definitely going to come out when you talk to other companies that do know, and especially with the government. They're going to know if you know how to do business with them or not. But yeah, all of that was kind of a long spiel of what I actually do as a defense consultant. I do it day in and day out. because opportunities slow down. They're really hopping and popping now. Seaport is just endless. Sam, all kinds of stuff. And just so many opportunities, and most of these, I've been tracking for a long, long time. So it's not like I'm just jumping on ones that pop up on Sam. It's like I'm looking at contracts that are going on right now, and they're gonna a year and a half from now, they're gonna um, be up for recompete. And all of those are in a nice organized list, organized by color. So, when they turn red, when it's getting close to, hey, this is coming out for recompete, turns red and it, moves to the top of the list. And then you start focusing on that opportunity that's coming out for recompete, and you start developing teams. You start reaching out and for partners, and you start putting together teams to go after these, proposal or opportunities that are, the contract's not even done yet. You're getting way ahead of the game. You're getting way into pre-solicitation. You're shaping, going to industry days, you know, either giving recommendations to the government from industry or shaping a solicitation, what's it called? Source site, with your questions. All right, you're shaping the opportunity to give you the largest advantage. If it's a really big contract, like I mean tens of millions of dollars, then you have to do something called a win theme, or you like identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your competition strengths and weaknesses, and then you have like a theme for your proposal. I don't know, it's a lot, but like right now, end of the year, there's a lot going on. There's so many, and I know a lot of people say, hey, if it comes out on Sam, it's too late, and that's just not true because I crush it on Sam. Stuff that I was not tracking that's just dropped out there. And I will say, as a government customer, not a contracting officer, a customer, a lot of our requirements for professional services, they were emergent or they were needed last minute, or nobody thought of the contracting process, how long it takes, but you're still planning to do these things on these dates, but they require a lot of contracted support. But nobody thinks, oh, hey, we should probably start the contract now because that takes forever and it's hard. They don't. They just say, contracting, throw it in there, and then they keep planning for this certain date to exercise, this task that needs a lot of contracted support, and then it would get passed to me at contracting, to develop the requirement, package it up, and get it to where it needs to go, staffed and approved into the contracting office. And it's like, well, this is like millions of dollars, and we have 60 days until the period of performance. So there's a lot of that, meaning there's no pre-solicitation. There was none of that. All right, and you got to get kind of creative, to make that happen. Because some contract officers, they'd be like, gosh, one of them said to me, he's like, I'm new to Army contracting, but I'm not new to contracting. And he like said it loud so everyone in the room could hear. He's like, is anyone here aware of how to get, I don't know, I think it was like a $6 million contract awarded in under 30 days? He's like, anybody? Anybody here? He's like, okay, I didn't think so. And I'm just like, look, man, I'm running out of options here, but eventually, we got it figured out. Yeah, I just pushed it to an already existing contract vehicle, and yeah, but the whole point of that was the pre-solicitation. Like I never had anything come out for pre-solicitation. Sometimes I would have stuff actually get posted for solicitation 2 weeks before the period of performance, right? And there's a lot of that because the unit isn't organized. Nobody knows anything about contracting, period. So no, they don't understand how long it takes. So it's not put into the planning process. So it always gets to the contracting office last minute and it just gets dumped out. All right, it gets dumped out. Sometimes that's teed up for somebody. You're there, it's already planned with a vendor, and it's put out last minute on purpose because nobody in their right mind would touch that opportunity if they didn't already have knowledge of it, right? But then a lot of times that was not the case. I'm just like, we need help. So please bid on this. And sometimes people wouldn't bid on it because it's so serious and they're putting at so much risk and the period of performance is so close. They're like, man, we couldn't do that in that short a period of time. And you can't make people bid on it. But the point is, yeah, that was all of my requirements for years, all of them. None of them were forecasted. There's no pre-solicitation. There's no source of sought. Like there's no source of sought. It was just boom solicitation. Here you go. There's no way anybody got wind of it. No. Um, and sometimes people didn't bid, and we were in a pickle. And I could see why, because being on the outside, I wouldn't bid on some of those either. But if you're really good at what you do and you know how the military works and you have relationships in the military, you know their training cycles, Jort cycles, whatever, you know when this stuff's coming. All right. And as a consultant, that's what you're supposed to bring to the table for a company trying to break into this industry, because that's a lot to know. My notes are all over the place. So, yeah, government contracting is the hardest. I'd say DoD, it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult just because the competition's so serious, and these are really sophisticated people. Like these are smart, smart people. Just in business development. Like I said, in my opinion, I mean, if you're in business development, you should probably be doing capture at the same time. Anybody customer facing, or if you're in front of the government or the military at any time, well, you should probably know sales and you should probably know the contracting process and capture, giving the customer the ammo they need to buy you. Like all these things need to be with the person who's interacting with the government, because any interaction with the government is an opportunity to kind of sell on the back foot and say, hey, we love it was a pleasure doing business with you, but we just want you to know we do a lot more than just this. There's a lot more we can provide. You want to let them know, hey, we have a lot of capabilities, either you do or hey, it's your partners doing it. Because being able to go get the work, to even be able to get in front of a government customer, not a contract officer, get in front of a customer, demonstrate capabilities, whatever, because you have relationships, you're in front of the customer. Okay. So it's not like you're going to say, you're going to be there performing services or, whatnot, supporting, a exercise or some type of training. And they'll drop a hint on you like, man, we're looking for someone who can do this, like, do you know anybody? You don't want to be like, oh man, that sucks, dude. I hope you get that figured out. All right, man, we'll be back next month, man. Good luck. And you just let that opportunity totally go by you. It makes no sense. So if you're the one in front of the government, you're the one who should be capturing all the opportunities, not just for you, but for your partners. All right. And because you could just subcontract it out. All right. That's what I do as a consultant. All of that, all the time. Uh, yeah. All right, that's about all I got. Hopefully, if any of you watched the end of this video, you somehow enjoyed that and got something from it. And if you did, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe. And if there's anything you want to know about defense, let me know in the comments and I'll talk about it. I could tell you how things go down, or at least what I may or may not have seen. But yeah. All right. That was the video. Thank you guys very much. I'll be back with another one. You guys have a good night. Thanks.